December 15th, 1887, Texas Panhandle. The kind of cold that cuts through leather and bone. Cole Ryder knelt in frozen dirt, staring at 3 wooden crosses. His knees ached. His hands ached. Everything ached, but not as much as the hollow place in his chest where his family used to live. Elena Ryder, beloved wife, died August 2nd, 1883, age 29. Danny Ryder, precious son, died August 5th, 1883, age 5. Sarah Ryder, angel baby, died August 7th, 1883, age 2, 4 years. 1,460 days since the fever took them, since Cole had held Danny's burning hand and promised him heaven was real, since he'd buried his daughter in a dress too big because she'd never gotten the chance to grow into it. The Colt revolver sat heavy on his thigh. 6 bullets, always 6 bullets. Cole had checked them every night for 4 years, and every night asked himself the same question: tonight or tomorrow, tomorrow or tonight? An empty whiskey bottle lay beside him. Not his first, wouldn't be his last. If there was a last. The wind howled across the plain, driving snow sideways. Cole's ranch, the Lone Star, sat 2 miles behind him. Empty barn, empty house, empty life. He'd kept it running because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering meant drowning. His horse, Thunder, a gray Mustang who'd survived 3 Apache raids and 1 very stupid rustler, stood 30 feet back. The animal knew. Horses always know when a man's at the edge. Cole pulled the Colt from its holster. The metal was cold enough to burn. He'd been a Texas Ranger once. 15 years wearing the star. Good at it, too. Found lost people, stopped bad people, made the frontier a little less wild. Then the fever came, swept through Redemption Creek like divine punishment. Doc Hayes said it was scarlet fever. Cole knew it was just life reminding you that nothing good lasts. He'd quit the Rangers the day after Sarah's funeral. Told Captain Morrison to give the badge to someone who still believed justice mattered. The captain had tried to talk sense into him. Cole had walked away mid-sentence. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of going through motions. Feed the cattle. Mend the fences. Drink until sleeping was possible. Wake up. Repeat. A loop with no exit. Elena used to say he had kind eyes. Used to trace the lines around them with her finger and call them laugh lines. Cole couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed. Couldn't remember what it felt like to want tomorrow. The Colt felt right in his hand, familiar. Comforting even. 1 pull, 1 second, then he'd see them again. Elena would smile that made him forget his own name. Danny would run at him full speed the way he always did. Sarah would reach up with those tiny hands. Cole's finger found the trigger. Thunder whinnied, sharp, urgent. Cole looked up. The horse was staring east, ears forward, body tense, combat stance. Something was out there. Then he heard it. A scream. High, thin, desperate. A child's scream cutting through the howl of wind and snow. Cole's Ranger instincts kicked in before his brain caught up. He was on his feet, Colt holstered, boots pounding frozen ground toward Thunder. The horse didn't need urging. They'd worked together too long for that. The scream came again, closer now, east toward the old Barrett property. Been abandoned 3 winters. The family had pulled up stakes and headed to California. Left everything behind. Barn, house, hope. Cole kicked Thunder into a gallop. The blizzard was getting worse. Visibility down to maybe 20 feet. Snow driving so hard it felt like needles against exposed skin. No one should be out here. Nothing should be out here except things with fur and good sense. Another scream. Weaker this time. Cole's chest tightened. He knew that sound. Knew it from the war. From ranger work. From nightmares. That was the sound of someone giving up. The Barrett barn materialized out of the white like a ghost. Roof half collapsed, door hanging crooked. Cole dismounted fast, rifle in hand. Old habits. You don't walk into unknown situations with empty hands. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Darkness swallowed him whole. His eyes adjusted. Moonlight through gaps in the roof provided just enough light to see shapes. Hay bales rotting in corners, broken tools, the skeleton of a wagon, and in the far corner, huddled against the wall, two small figures. Cole's breath caught. A girl, maybe 11 or 12, red hair tangled with ice. Clothes that were probably homemade, now torn and filthy. Her arms were spread wide, covering something behind her. In her shaking hands, she gripped a rusted pitchfork like it was Excalibur itself. Behind her, barely visible, a toddler. Boy, Cole thought. Maybe 3 years old, not moving, not crying. That was bad. That was very bad. The girl's eyes locked onto Cole. Pure terror. The kind of terror that comes from experience, not imagination. Cole lowered his rifle slowly, held up his empty hand, kept his voice soft. The voice he'd used with Danny when thunderstorms scared him. "I'm not here to hurt you, little one. Just heard you scream. Came to help." The girl's grip tightened on the pitchfork. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her voice came out raw. "Liar. They all say that before they hurt you." Cole's heart cracked a little. This child had seen things, bad things, things that taught her all adults were threats. He knelt down, made himself smaller, less threatening. The cold barn floor bit through his pants, but he didn't move. "My name's Cole Ryder. Got a ranch 2 miles west. Warm fire, hot food. That little one behind you looks cold." The girl's eyes darted to the toddler, then back to Cole, calculating, weighing death by stranger against death by cold. "Why would you help us?" Her voice trembled. "Because a long time ago I had a boy about your brother's age, and a little girl even younger, and I'd want someone to help them if they were cold and scared." The girl studied him, really studied him, like she was reading his soul in the dark, looking for the lie, looking for the trap. Cole knew that look. He'd seen it in wounded animals, in soldiers who'd seen too much death, in his own mirror. "What happened to your kids?" she asked quietly. Cole's throat tightened. "Fever took them. 4 years back." The toddler behind the girl coughed, a horrible rattling sound that Cole recognized immediately. Pneumonia. The child was dying. The girl spun around, pitchfork forgotten. Her voice cracked. "Ezra." "No, no, 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 no." She pressed her hand to the boy's forehead. Even from 10 feet away, Cole could see her face go white. "He's burning up. He was fine this morning. I swear he was fine." Cole stood slowly. "May I see him?" The girl's eyes snapped to him, suspicious, protective. "I won't hurt him." "But that cough. If we don't get him warm soon, the fever's going to take him. You know that, don't you?" The girl's chin trembled. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I can't lose him. He's all I got left." Cole's chest felt like someone was squeezing it. He'd said those exact words to Doc Hayes while Danny was dying. Exact same words. "Then let me help you keep him alive." Silence. Wind screamed outside. The barn creaked. The toddler coughed again, weaker. The girl closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. The fight had drained out, replaced by desperate hope. "His name's Ezra. I'm Ruby. Ruby Carson." "All right, Ruby Carson." Cole moved forward slowly, hands visible. "Let's get your brother home." The ride back nearly killed them. Cole wrapped both children in his heavy coat. Ruby rode behind him, arms locked around his waist. Ezra he held against his chest, trying to share body heat with a child who felt like ice wrapped in skin. Thunder pushed through the blizzard like he understood what was at stake. Good horse. Best horse. Cole would give him extra oats for a month. Ruby didn't speak, didn't cry, just held on. Cole could feel her shaking. Cold or fear or both, probably both. Ezra had stopped coughing. That was either very good or very bad. Cole couldn't tell which. The boy's breathing was shallow. Too shallow. Cole had heard that breathing before, right before Sarah's last breath. No, not this time, not again. The Lone Star Ranch appeared through the white. Never been so happy to see those weathered buildings. Cole kicked the barn door open and carried Ezra straight into the house. "Fire!" he barked at Ruby. "Matches on the mantel. Get it going fast." Ruby moved without argument. Good girl. Smart girl. Cole laid Ezra on his bed. The bed he hadn't changed sheets on in 4 years. Didn't matter. He stripped off the frozen clothes. The boy's lips were blue, skin like ice, chest barely moving. "Come on, little man, stay with me." Cole grabbed every blanket in the house, piled them on, started heating water, pressed warm cloths to the tiny chest. He'd done this before, with Danny. It hadn't worked then. It had to work now. Is he going to die? Ruby's voice came from behind him, flat, like she'd already accepted the answer. "Not if I can help it. Mama died. Papa left before I was born. Everyone dies or leaves." Cole turned to look at her. This girl who'd been through hell and somehow kept walking, kept protecting, kept surviving. "I'm not everyone, and your brother's not dying tonight. Not in my house." Ruby stared at him, then she nodded once and went back to feeding the fire. Hours passed. The blizzard raged outside. Inside, Cole worked, changed warm cloths, monitored breathing, prayed to a God he'd stopped believing in. Ruby sat cross-legged by the fire, watching, silent. Her eyes never left her brother. Around midnight, Ezra started shivering. Weak at first, then stronger. Cole let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Shivering's good, means his body's fighting. Ruby stood up, walked to the bed, took her brother's tiny hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. Mama used to say that. When I got sick, she'd hold my hand all night and say, "You're fighting, baby girl. Keep fighting." Smart woman, your mama. Ruby's jaw tightened. She was. That's why they killed her. Cole went very still. Killed her? The words spilled out of Ruby like poison she'd been holding too long. The people in Miller's Creek said she was a witch, said her red hair was the devil's mark, said she cursed the bankers' cattle when they got sick. It's stupid. I know it's stupid. Mama never hurt nothing. She was a healer, helped people when they got sick with herbs and roots. But when Silas Thornton's cattle died, he needed someone to blame. Ruby finally looked at Cole. Her eyes were dry. The tears had burned out long ago. They came at night, dragged her out of bed, made me watch while they put a rope around her neck. Thornton said she had to confess. Mama wouldn't confess because she didn't do nothing wrong, so they hung her from the big oak tree in the town square. Ruby's hand flew to her throat. Cole saw the bruises then, dark purple, shaped like fingers. Thornton grabbed you too when I tried to stop them. He said if I told anyone the truth, he'd hang me and Ezra next. Said everyone would believe we were cursed too. So I grabbed Ezra and ran. Been running for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in this weather? We hid in barns, root cellars, anywhere we could find. Ruby looked down at her brother. Ezra stopped crying after the first week. Think he forgot how? Something inside Cole snapped. Not broke. Snapped. Like a rope pulled too tight for too long. He crossed the room and knelt in front of Ruby, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. You're not running anymore. Understand? This is your home now. Yours and Ezra's. And if Silas Thornton or anyone else comes looking, his voice dropped low, dangerous, they'll have to go through me. You don't even know us. I know enough. I know you love that boy more than your own life. I know you're braver than most grown men I've met. And I know, he paused, his throat tight, I know my Elena would have taken one look at you and said, Cole Ryder, you bring that girl home right now. Ruby's lip trembled. You mean it? For real? I don't say things I don't mean. Not anymore. The wall broke. Ruby threw her arms around Cole's neck and sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. The sobs of a child who'd been strong for too long. Cole held her tight. I got you. Nobody's taking you from me. Not ever. Dawn came gray and cold. The storm had weakened, but not broken. Snow still fell, lighter now, drifting against the cabin walls. Ezra woke hungry. That was a good sign. Cole made oatmeal with honey while Ruby spoon-fed her brother, making faces to coax each bite. "He likes you," Ruby said, watching Cole move around the kitchen. "Smart boy." Cole shrugged. "Strangers aren't to be trusted. But you're different. I'm not special. You came into that barn alone, middle of a blizzard. Didn't know what you'd find." Ruby tilted her head. "Most folks would have kept riding. Most folks aren't worth much." She almost smiled. "Almost." "Cole?" "Yeah? What happened to your wife and boy?" "And the little girl?" The question hit like a punch, but she'd shared her story. "Seemed only fair. Fever," he said quietly. "Came through 4 summers back. Took half the county. Elena got sick first, then Danny, then Sarah." He stared at the wall. "Doc said there wasn't nothing I could do. Said it was in God's hands. But I keep thinking maybe if I'd ridden faster for medicine, maybe if I'd kept them warmer. Maybe it was something I did or didn't do." Ruby watched him carefully. "It wasn't your fault." "Feels like it was." "The fever wasn't your fault," Ruby said firmly. "Just like Mama dying wasn't my fault. Bad things happen. Doesn't mean we caused them. Mama used to say suffering either makes you mean or makes you understand." "I didn't want to be mean." Cole blinked. An 11-year-old girl had just said the thing he'd needed to hear for 4 years. "When'd you get so wise? Had to grow up fast when Mama died." Before Cole could respond, a sound cut through the morning quiet. Hoofbeats, coming fast, multiple horses. His expression hardened. "Back room, now." Ruby didn't argue. She scooped up Ezra and ran. Cole grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch. 3 riders came out of the tree line. The man in front wore a black coat that probably cost more than Cole's entire ranch. Expensive boots, silver spurs, a smile that made Cole's skin crawl. Flanking him were 2 rough-looking men, hired muscle, hands resting on pistols, the kind of men who did dirty work for money and didn't ask questions. "Morning, friend." The leader tipped his hat. "Name's Silas Thornton. I'm looking for 2 children, runaways, dangerous runaways." Cole's finger found the trigger. "Haven't seen any children? That so?" Thornton's smile didn't waver. "Funny. Tracks in the snow say different. Led right to your door. Fresh tracks. Small feet. And I know those feet, know them well. Tracks say a lot of things. Doesn't make them true." Thornton leaned forward in his saddle. His voice stayed pleasant, but his eyes went cold. "Let me be direct, Mr. Ryder. I know who you are. Ex-Ranger. Lost your family to fever. Been living out here alone ever since. I respect that. Man wants to be left alone, I understand. But those children you're hiding, they're cursed. Spawn of a witch. Get to the point. Those children witnessed certain events in Miller's Creek, events that got misunderstood. Their mother practiced dark arts, cursed my cattle, poisoned my wells. We had to protect our town, had to do what was necessary by murdering an innocent woman?" Thornton's smile flickered. "Strong word, murder. We prefer community justice." The woman was tried by her peers and found guilty. Now her devil-spawned children are spreading lies, poisoning good folks with false testimony. They need to be returned to Miller's Creek for proper handling. Cole stepped forward. His voice dropped to something cold, something deadly. "Here's what I understand, Thornton. I understand you dragged a woman from her bed in the middle of the night. I understand you hung her without a trial, without a judge, without anything resembling justice. I understand you choked a 12-year-old girl and threatened to kill a baby. And I understand you're standing on my land right now, asking me to hand over 2 terrified children so you can murder them too." Thornton's mask cracked. Anger flashed across his face. "You're making a mistake, Ryder. A big mistake. Only mistake I made was letting you talk this long." Cole raised his rifle. "You got 5 seconds to ride off my property. After that, I start shooting. And I don't miss. You'd die for strangers? For witch spawn? Wouldn't be the first time I've stood between evil men and innocent children. Won't be the last." The two hired men shifted nervously in their saddles. They'd signed up for easy money, not a gunfight with a man who looked like he'd already made peace with dying. One of them spoke up. "Boss, maybe we should shut up." Thornton's voice was sharp. He kept his eyes on Cole. "You think you're some kind of hero writer? You're nothing. A washed-up drunk living in the past. I got friends, important friends. Judge Caldwell, Sheriff Morrison in Miller's Creek, the land office, the bank. I own this county. You don't own me, not yet. But when I'm done, you'll wish you'd handed over those brats when you had the chance. I'll take your land, your cattle, everything you got left. And those children? I'll get them eventually, one way or another." Cole's voice stayed calm, but his eyes were ice. 4 seconds. "This isn't over, Ryder. 3 seconds. You're a dead man. 2 seconds. Thornton jerked his reins hard. His horse reared slightly. The two hired men were already turning their mounts. "You'll regret this. Mark my words. 1 second. Thornton spurred his horse. His men followed, riding hard back toward the tree line. Snow kicked up behind them. Within seconds they were shadows in the white. Then gone. Cole watched until he couldn't see them anymore. Then he lowered his rifle and let out a long breath. His hands were steady. They'd been steady the whole time. Ranger training. You don't survive 15 years on the frontier by showing fear. But his heart was pounding, because he knew what he'd just done. He'd made an enemy of the most powerful man in 3 counties. He'd drawn a line in the dirt and dared Thornton to cross it. There'd be consequences. Soon. You can come out now. Ruby appeared in the doorway, Ezra on her hip. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady, determined. "He'll be back, I know. With more men, probably. Maybe the law. Probably." "And you're still going to fight him?" Cole looked at her. This fierce, broken, beautiful girl who'd survived things that would have destroyed most adults. Who'd protected her baby brother for 2 weeks in a blizzard. Who'd watched her mother die and somehow kept going. Till my last breath. "Why?" Ruby's voice cracked. "You don't owe us nothing. You could let us go. Be safe." Cole walked to her. Knelt down so they were eye level. 4 years ago, I couldn't save my own kids. Had to watch them die. Couldn't do nothing but hold their hands and lie to them about heaven. He swallowed hard. Every day since, I've wished I'd died with them. Wished that fever had taken me too. Because living without them felt like punishment. Ruby's eyes filled with tears. "But last night," Cole continued, "when I heard you scream, something woke up inside me, something I thought was dead. That ranger instinct, that need to protect, to stand between evil and innocent folks. And when I saw you in that barn, ready to die to save your brother, I knew." "Knew what?" "That maybe I got a second chance. Maybe I couldn't save Danny and Sarah. But I can save you and Ezra. And maybe that's why I'm still here. Maybe that's what Elena meant when she said I had kind eyes. Because she knew someday I'd need them to see 2 kids who needed help." Ruby's lip trembled. "You really mean that?" "I don't say things I don't mean. Not anymore." She set Ezra down carefully. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Cole's neck. Held on tight. Like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept trying to knock her down. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, Pa." Cole's heart cracked wide open. He held her tight, let himself feel it. The grief and the hope all tangled together. The weight of losing one family and the terrifying joy of finding another. "I got you," he murmured. "Both of you. And nobody's taking you away. Not Thornton, not anybody." Ezra toddled over and wrapped his little arms around Cole's leg. The boy looked up with big eyes. "Pa?" Cole's vision blurred. He scooped Ezra up with one arm, kept the other around Ruby. "Yeah, little man, I'm your pa now, and that means I keep you safe, no matter what." They stood there in the doorway, 3 people who'd been alone now holding on to each other. A family born from tragedy and held together by choice. Outside, the snow kept falling. Soft now, peaceful, like the world was giving them this one moment of quiet before the storm returned. Because Cole knew the storm would return, Thornton wouldn't let this go. Men like him never did. He'd be back with more men. Maybe with the law, maybe with torches and ropes. But that was tomorrow's problem. Right now, in this moment, Cole had something worth fighting for, something worth living for. A reason to get up in the morning, a reason to keep going. 2 children who called him Pa. That evening, as darkness fell, Cole sat on the porch with his rifle across his knees, watching, waiting. Ruby was inside teaching Ezra a song their mama used to sing. Cole could hear their voices through the window, sweet and young and full of hope. He thought about Elena, about what she'd say if she could see him now. He thought she'd smile, thought she'd tell him he was doing the right thing, thought she'd be proud. Thunder nickered from the barn. The horse had good instincts. If anyone approached, Thunder would warn him. Cole checked his rifle. 6 shots. He had more ammunition inside, enough to hold off a small army if needed. And if it came to that, if Thornton came back with men and guns, Cole would fight. Because that's what fathers did. They protected their children. They stood between danger and the people they loved. They drew lines and held them no matter the cost. Cole had forgotten that after Elena died, had forgotten what it meant to have something worth protecting, had spent 4 years just existing, going through motions, waiting for death. But Ruby and Ezra had changed that, had reminded him that life wasn't just about avoiding pain. It was about choosing love even when love made you vulnerable, even when love meant you might get hurt again. Elena used to say the bravest thing a person could do was love someone knowing they might lose them. Cole had thought that was foolish back then, but now he understood. Love wasn't about safety, it was about showing up anyway. About opening your heart even when it had been shattered before. About looking at 2 orphaned children and saying, yes, you're mine, I choose you. That was bravery, real bravery. The door opened behind him. Ruby came out wrapped in a blanket, sat down beside him without asking permission. Ezra's asleep. Good, he needs rest. So do you. I'm keeping watch. Ruby looked at him. When's the last time you slept? Don't remember. Pa? The word still hit him like a punch every time, sweet and painful all at once. I'm fine, Ruby. No, you're not. You're scared. Cole started to deny it, then stopped. This girl had been through too much for lies. She deserved truth. Yeah, I'm scared. Scared I'll fail you, like I failed Danny and Sarah. Scared Thornton will come with men I can't fight. Scared I'll lose you both and have to bury 2 more kids. Ruby took his hand. Hers was so small, rough from work, scarred from survival. Mama used to say fear means you got something worth protecting. Only people who love are scared of losing. Your mama was a wise woman, she was. Ruby squeezed his hand. And she'd tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. You didn't fail your family. The fever failed them. God failed them maybe, but not you. You loved them till the end. That's all anyone can do. Cole's throat tightened. And you're not going to fail us, Ruby continued, because we're not alone this time. We got each other, 3 of us, a family. And families are stronger than one person alone. Where'd you learn to be so smart? Suffering makes you mean or makes you understand. Remember? Cole almost smiled. I remember. They sat in silence for a while. Stars appeared overhead, bright and cold and distant. Cole thought about all the nights he'd sat out here alone, drunk and desperate, ready to end it. Hard to believe that was just yesterday, felt like a lifetime ago. Ruby? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For saving me. I know I saved you from that barn, but you saved me from something worse. Saved me from giving up completely. Ruby leaned her head against his shoulder. We saved each other then. That's what families do. Cole put his arm around her, held her close, felt her warmth, her life, her trust. Get some sleep, little one. I'll keep watch. Wake me if trouble comes. I can shoot. I know you can, but tonight, let me do the protecting. You've been strong long enough. Ruby nodded, stood up, stopped at the door. Pa, yeah? I'm glad God sent me to that barn. Glad he sent you to find us. Me too, Ruby, me too. She went inside. Cole heard her settle next to Ezra, heard her whisper something soft, then silence. Cole sat alone with his rifle and his thoughts. The night stretched out before him, long and cold and full of unknowns. But for the first time in 4 years, Cole Ryder wasn't afraid of the dark, because he had something the darkness couldn't touch. He had hope. He had purpose. He had a family. And come dawn, whatever Thornton threw at him, Cole would be ready, because he'd made a promise. To Ruby, to Ezra, to Elena's memory. He'd protect them or die trying. There was no middle ground, not anymore. The wind picked up. Snow swirled across the porch. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Thunder answered from the barn with a challenging snort. Cole checked his rifle one more time, then settled in for a long night. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. But tonight, Cole Ryder had everything he needed. A reason to fight. A reason to live. A reason to believe that broken things could be made whole again. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. December 18th, 1887. 3 days after Cole Ryder found 2 frozen children in a barn and decided they were worth living for. The sun rose blood red over the Texas panhandle. Cole stood on his porch watching the horizon, looking for dust clouds, looking for riders, looking for trouble that he knew was coming. Inside the house, Ruby was teaching Ezra his letters using a piece of charcoal and the back of an old flour sack. The boy's laughter drifted through the window, sweet and innocent and completely unaware that powerful men wanted him dead. Cole's hand rested on his Colt. 3 days of peace, too much peace. Thornton wasn't the type to back down, wasn't the type to let things go. The silence felt like the moment before thunder, like the world holding its breath. Thunder himself stood in the corral, ears forward, watching the same horizon Cole watched. The horse knew. Animals always know. A rider appeared on the eastern road, alone, moving slow, deliberate. Cole's hand tightened on his gun. Then he saw the black bag, the weathered face, the tired slump in the saddle. Doc Samuel Hayes. Cole relaxed slightly. The old doctor had been a friend for 15 years, had delivered Danny, had held Elena's hand when the fever took her, had never once judged Cole for the drinking or the silence or the slow suicide by isolation. Doc dismounted with a grunt. 61 years showed in every movement, but his eyes were sharp, his hands steady. "Morning, Cole?" "Doc, got a telegram yesterday." Hayes pulled a folded paper from his coat. "Thought you'd want to see it." Cole took the telegram. Read it once. Then again. "Judge Elizabeth Morgan. Stop Fort Worth. Stop arriving. Redemption Creek, December 22nd. Stop will hear custody matter. Carson children stop. Prepare testimony and witnesses stop." Thomas Hayes, M.D. Cole, looked up. "You called in a judge?" "Called in the only honest judge in Texas." Hayes smiled slightly. "Beth Morgan doesn't owe Thornton anything. Doesn't owe anybody anything. She'll hear the case fair. Thornton won't like it. Thornton can go to hell." Hayes's voice hardened. "I've known Beth for 30 years. She's tougher than most men I've met. If anyone can stand up to Silas Thornton, it's her. When does she arrive?" 4 days. That gives us time to build a case, get statements, find witnesses who'll speak against Thornton. Who's going to speak against the man who owns the bank, the man who can destroy anyone who crosses him? Hayes pulled out another paper, this one handwritten. "I've already got 5 people who'll testify. Miss Abigail from the general store, John Carter, the blacksmith, the Morrison brothers who ranch north of here, and Pastor Williams." "The pastor?" Cole raised an eyebrow. "Thought he was Thornton's man." "Was. Until Thornton tried to force him to preach that the Carson children were cursed. Williams told him where he could stick his demands." Hayes chuckled. "Man's got a spine after all." That's 5 witnesses. Against how many Thornton can buy. Doesn't matter how many liars Thornton brings. Truth only needs one voice if that voice is loud enough. Hayes looked toward the house. How's the girl? Strong. Stronger than she should have to be. And the boy? Fever broke. Lungs are clearing. He'll live. Thanks to you. Cole shook his head. Thanks to luck. Another hour in that barn and I'd have been burying them both. It wasn't luck, Cole. It was Providence. Hayes put a hand on his shoulder. You were meant to find them, just like they were meant to find you. Don't talk to me about Providence. Cole's voice went hard. Providence took Elena and Danny and Sarah. Providence let a good woman get murdered while her daughter watched. Providence doesn't exist. Just chance and suffering. Then call it chance. Call it whatever you want. Hayes squeezed his shoulder. But those children are alive because you chose to ride into a blizzard when most men would have stayed home. That's not Providence. That's character. Before Cole could respond, the door opened. Ruby stepped out, Ezra on her hip. The boy saw Doc Hayes and grinned. Doc? Ezra reached out his little arms. Hayes's weathered face softened. He took the boy, lifted him up, examined his eyes and color with practiced efficiency. Someone's feeling better. He ate 2 bowls of oatmeal this morning, Ruby said, and he's been talking non-stop. Talking is good, means his lungs are strong. Hayes set Ezra down. You did good work keeping him alive, Mr. Ryder. We both did. Ruby looked at Cole. Pa wouldn't let me help at first, said I needed sleep, but I stayed up anyway. We took turns with the warm cloths. Pa. The word still hit Cole like a fist to the chest. Sweet and painful and terrifying all at once. Hayes noticed. Smiled. Looks like you got yourself a family, Cole. Looks like. Judge Morgan will want to interview Ruby. Hayes's tone turned serious. She'll ask hard questions. About what happened in Miller's Creek. About Thornton. Can you handle that, young lady? Ruby's jaw set. I can handle it. I want to handle it. Want to tell everyone what that man did. It won't be easy. Thornton's lawyer will try to make you look like a liar. Will say you're a child who doesn't understand what she saw. I understand just fine. Ruby's eyes blazed. I understand my mama's dead because Thornton wanted our land. I understand he murdered her and would have murdered us too. I understand the truth even if grown folks don't want to hear it. Hayes nodded slowly. You'll do fine then. Just tell it exactly like you just told me. Clear and strong and true. I will. Cole walked Hayes back to his horse. The doctor mounted slowly, every ear showing. Cole. Yeah, that girl's been through hell. So's that boy. They need stability. Need to know they're safe. Judge Morgan's going to ask if you're fit to be their guardian. And I'm going to tell her you're the best man I know. But she'll want to see it for herself. She'll want to see that you're not just a broken man trying to fill a hole, that you're actually capable of being a father again. I hope I am. These kids deserve better than a broken man. You rode into a blizzard to save strangers. You've fought off Thornton twice now. You've given those kids a home when the whole world wanted them dead. Hayes leaned down from his saddle. That's not a broken man, Cole. That's a hero. Even if you don't see it yet. I'm no hero. Tell that to Ruby. See what she says. Hayes rode off. Cole watched until he disappeared, then turned back to the house where Ruby was teaching Ezra a song. Their voices drifted through the morning air, off-key and perfect. Cole closed his eyes, let himself feel it, the terror of caring, the weight of responsibility, the crushing fear that he'd fail them like he'd failed his first family, but also the joy. The fierce, unexpected joy of hearing a child call him Pa, of having a reason to wake up, of mattering to someone again. He'd forgotten what that felt like, had forgotten that life could be more than just surviving, that it could be beautiful and terrifying and worth fighting for all at the same time. Pa, Ruby called from inside. Ezra wants to see the horses. Coming! Cole went inside, scooped up Ezra. The boy squealed with delight, wrapped his little arms around Cole's neck. Love you, Pa. 4 words, simple and devastating. Cole had to stop walking, had to breathe through the wave of emotion that crashed over him. "Love you too, little man." Ruby watched with knowing eyes. She understood what it cost him to open his heart again, understood the risk of loving when you'd already lost everything. She slipped her hand into his free hand, squeezed once. "We got you too, Pa. You're not alone anymore." The three of them walked to the barn, Ezra babbling about horses, Ruby humming the song her mama used to sing, Cole carrying them both toward whatever future they'd build together. But the peace shattered that afternoon. Cole was mending fence when he heard horses, multiple horses, moving fast. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the house. Ruby had already gotten Ezra inside and locked the door. Smart girl, quick learner. But these weren't Thornton's men. Sheriff Tom Garrett rode at the head of a group. Behind him were Doc Hayes, Miss Abigail, the Morrison brothers, and 6 other townspeople Cole recognized. They pulled up in his yard. Garrett dismounted. "Mr. Ryder, we need to talk." "About?" Garrett pulled out a folded document, official-looking, sealed with wax. "About this. It's a warrant. Signed by Judge Caldwell in Miller's Creek. Orders me to take Ruby and Ezra Carson into custody pending trial for witchcraft." Cole's blood went cold. "That's insane. I know it's insane." Garrett's face was tight. "But it's also legal. Caldwell's a circuit judge. His warrants are valid in 3 counties. Caldwell's in Thornton's pocket. Everyone knows that. Knowing it and proving it are different things." Garrett handed him the warrant. "I'm supposed to execute this today. Take the children back to Miller's Creek for trial. Over my dead body." Garrett held up his hand. "Which is why I brought witnesses." He gestured to the group behind him. "We're here to tell you that I'm refusing to execute this warrant." Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. "Wait." Cole lowered his rifle slightly. "You're refusing?" "Damn right I'm refusing." Garrett's voice rang out clear. "Judge Caldwell can take his corrupt warrant and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. I'm not arresting children for witchcraft. This isn't the Dark Ages." Miss Abigail spoke up. "We've talked it over, all of us, and we agree with Sheriff Garrett. Those children stay here until Judge Morgan arrives. Then we'll have a proper hearing. But if you refuse a warrant," Cole said, "Thornton can have you removed as sheriff. Let him try." Garrett smiled grimly. "I've got the support of half the town, the good half, the half that actually believes in justice instead of mob rule." One of the Morrison brothers stepped forward. "We're with you, Mr. Ryder, with you and those kids, whatever comes." Cole felt something crack in his chest. These people, these near strangers, were risking their livelihoods, their safety, for 2 orphaned children they barely knew. "Why?" His voice came out rough. "Why risk everything for them?" "Because it's right." Miss Abigail's voice was firm. "Because Grace Carson was a good woman who helped my sister when she was sick. Because those children are innocent, and Thornton is a monster. And because if we don't stand up now, we're all complicit in murder." Heads nodded. The group looked determined, scared but determined. Doc Hayes spoke. "Judge Morgan arrives in 4 days. Until then, we protect those children. All of us together." "How?" Cole asked. "Thornton has money, power. He can bring in hired guns, can turn the whole county against us. Then we're ready for it." Garrett adjusted his gun belt. "I've sent telegrams to the territorial governor, to the Texas Rangers, to every authority I can think of. Help is coming. We just have to hold out until it arrives. And if help doesn't come in time, then we fight. Simple as that." Ruby appeared in the doorway. She'd been listening. Ezra peeked out from behind her legs. "I don't want anyone to get hurt because of us," she said quietly. "Maybe we should just go. Run away again." "No," Cole's voice was hard. "You're not running anymore." "None of us are." He turned to the assembled group. "I didn't ask for this fight. Didn't ask to be responsible for 2 kids or to stand against the most powerful man in the county. 3 days ago I was ready to die. Figured my life was over. Figured I had nothing left worth living for." He looked at Ruby and Ezra. Then I found them. 2 frozen kids in a barn who needed help. And something inside me woke up, something I thought was dead, that need to protect, to stand between evil and innocence, to matter. His voice strengthened. So if Thornton wants a fight, he'll get one. If he wants these children, he'll have to go through me. And apparently, he gestured to the group, through all of you too. We're with you, Garrett said, all the way. The group dispersed an hour later, but they left supplies, extra ammunition, food, blankets. Miss Abigail left a cherry pie that made Ezra's eyes go wide. That night, Cole sat with Ruby on the porch after Ezra went to sleep. You scared, Pa? Terrified. Me too. Ruby pulled her blanket tighter, but also kind of not scared. Because for the first time since Mama died, I don't feel alone. Feel like we got people on our side. We do. Cole squeezed her shoulder. Good people, brave people, like you. I'm not brave. I'm just doing what needs doing. That's what brave is. Ruby looked up at him. Mama used to say, courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing the hard thing anyway. Smart woman, your mama. She was. Ruby's voice softened. I miss her every day, but I think she'd be happy. Happy we found you. Happy we got a home. I think she'd be proud of you, of how strong you've been. Think she'd be proud of you too, for giving us a chance when you could have turned away. They sat in silence. Stars scattered across the winter sky like diamonds on black velvet. Somewhere a coyote called. Thunder answered with a snort. Ruby? Yeah, I need to tell you something. And I need you to understand it's not because I don't want you. It's because I do. Ruby tensed. What? If this goes bad, if Thornton comes with too many men, if I can't stop him. Cole swallowed hard. I need you to take Ezra and run. There's a root cellar out back, hidden door. You grab your brother and you hide there. And when it's safe, you run to Doc Hayes. He'll get you out of Texas, get you somewhere safe. No, Ruby, no. Her voice was fierce. I'm not running again. I'm not leaving you to fight alone. We're family, and family doesn't abandon each other. I need to know you'll survive, even if I don't. And I need you to know we're in this together. Ruby stood up, faced him. All 3 of us. We survive together or we don't survive at all. That's what family means. Cole looked at this 12-year-old girl with the soul of a warrior, this child who'd seen her mother murdered and still had the courage to hope, to trust, to love. When did you get so stubborn? Learn from you. Cole almost smiled. Fair enough. They went inside. Ruby checked on Ezra, tucked his blanket tighter, kissed his forehead. Then she curled up on her pallet near the fire. Good night, Pa. Good night, Ruby. Cole sat in his chair, rifle across his lap, watching the door, watching the windows, waiting for whatever dawn would bring. But dawn brought something unexpected. A woman. Cole woke to the sound of a wagon. He dozed off around 3. Bad habit. Dangerous habit. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. A single wagon. 1 horse. A woman in the driver's seat. As she got closer, Cole could see her better. Maybe 34. Dark hair pulled back, traveling dress that had seen better days, a carpet bag beside her. She pulled the wagon to a stop in his yard, looked directly at the house. Mr. Cole Ryder? Her voice was strong, clear. I need to speak with you about Ruby and Ezra Carson. Cole opened the door but didn't lower his rifle. Who's asking? My name is Iris Carson. I'm Ruby and Ezra's aunt. Their mother, Grace, was my sister. Cole studied her, looking for the lie, looking for the trap. But her eyes were honest, tired and sad and honest. Prove it. Iris reached into her bag slowly, pulled out a small object, tossed it to Cole. He caught it one-handed, a locket, gold, old. He opened it. Inside were 2 pictures, young women, nearly identical, twins maybe. One of them had red hair like Ruby. That's Grace and me, taken in Dallas 15 years ago before I left home, before she married and had children, before everything went wrong. Ruby appeared behind Cole. She'd woken up when the wagon arrived. She stared at the woman. Aunt Iris? The woman's face crumbled. Oh, sweet girl, Sweet, sweet girl. Yes, it's me." Ruby didn't move, didn't run forward, just stood there, suspicious and wary. "Mama said you left. Said you went to Dallas and never came back." "I did leave, and I'm sorry." Iris's voice cracked. "I left because our father was cruel, because staying meant dying inside. I asked Grace to come with me, but she wouldn't. Said someone had to take care of Mama, so I went alone." Tears ran down her face now. "I should have stayed, should have made her come. If I had, she'd still be alive. You and Ezra would have a mother, and I wouldn't have to live with knowing I abandoned my sister when she needed me." Ruby's jaw trembled. "Why didn't you come back? Not once in all these years?" "Because I was a coward. Because I was building a life in Dallas and told myself Grace was fine, that she'd be okay." Iris wiped her eyes. "Then 3 months ago I got a letter from her. First one in 10 years. She said a man named Silas Thornton was threatening her, trying to take her land. She was scared, needed help. What did you do?" "I packed my things and came as fast as I could. But by the time I reached Miller's Creek, she was already dead. Hung from a tree like a common criminal. And you two were gone, vanished. I've been searching for 2 weeks. How did you find us?" "A man at the general store in Redemption Creek said a stranger had taken in the Carson children. Said his name was Cole Ryder, and he lived at the Lone Star Ranch." Iris looked at Cole. "Thank you. Thank you for saving them when I couldn't." Cole didn't lower his rifle. "How do I know you're not working for Thornton?" Iris's eyes blazed. "That monster killed my sister, hung her without trial, without mercy. I'd sooner die than help him." She reached into her bag again, pulled out papers. "I have the deed to Grace's property. The original. Thornton tried to forge a new one, claiming the land was his, but I found Grace's copy hidden in her house. She also kept a journal, documenting every threat Thornton made, every attempt to force her off the land." She handed the papers to Cole. He examined them carefully. They looked legitimate. The deed was signed and sealed. The journal was in a woman's handwriting, detailed, dated, describing months of harassment. "This is evidence," Cole said. "This could prove Thornton's motive for murder." "Exactly. Which is why I'm here." Iris looked at Ruby. "I'm here to fight for you, sweet girl, to get justice for your mother, and to make sure you and Ezra are safe." Ruby stared at her aunt, tears streaming down her face now, but she didn't move forward, didn't trust yet. "Mama used to sing a song when I was little and couldn't sleep. Do you remember it?" Iris's voice went soft. She began to sing. "Hush, little darling, don't you cry. Mama's going to sing you a lullaby. Stars are shining, moon is bright. Angels keep you through the night." Ruby's face crumbled. "That's it. That's the song." She ran forward, threw herself into Iris's arms, sobbed like the child she was, the child she'd been forced to stop being. Iris held her, rocked her, sang the rest of the song while Ruby cried out weeks of terror and grief and loneliness. Cole lowered his rifle, watched this reunion, felt something twist in his chest, relief that Ruby had family, real family, but also fear, because if Iris wanted to take the children, she had more legal right than Cole did. She was blood. He was just a stranger who'd found them in a barn. When Ruby finally pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. "You came. You really came. I came. And I'm not leaving. Not ever again." Iris looked at Cole. "Mr. Ryder, may I see my nephew?" Cole hesitated, then nodded. They went inside. Ezra was awake, sitting up on his pallet, looking confused and scared by all the commotion. "Ezra," Ruby said gently, "this is Aunt Iris, Mama's sister. Remember Mama used to tell us about her?" Ezra studied Iris with solemn eyes, then reached out his little arms. Iris scooped him up, held him close, breathed in his little boy's smell. "You look just like Grace." She kissed his forehead, "just like your mama." Iris stayed all day, told stories about Grace when they were young, about their childhood in San Antonio before their father's drinking got bad, about the dreams they'd had before life got hard, about how Grace had wanted to be a teacher, how she'd loved books and flowers and singing. Ruby soaked it up like water after drought, these pieces of her mother, these memories that proved Grace Carson had been more than just a victim, had been a sister, a daughter, a dreaming girl once. That evening, after Ezra fell asleep, the three adults sat by the fire. "What's your plan?" Cole asked Iris. "For the children?" Iris looked at Ruby, who was dozing in a chair, then at Cole. "Honestly, I don't know. In Dallas, I work as a seamstress. I have a small room above a shop. Barely enough space for me, let alone 2 children. I can't take them there, not safely, and not with Thornton still hunting them." "So you want them to stay here?" "I want them to be safe." Iris met his eyes. "Doc Hayes told me what you did. Riding into a blizzard to save strangers, standing up to Thornton twice now, risking everything for children you barely know. That takes a rare kind of man. I'm not rare, just doing what's right. Most men don't know what right is anymore." Iris leaned forward. "I have a proposition. Judge Morgan is coming in 3 days. When she does, I'll testify that you should be Ruby and Ezra's legal guardian. I'll sign whatever papers say I consent. But I want to stay close, want to be part of their lives. You'd give up your claim to them?" "I'd share it." Iris's voice was firm. "Because the truth is, Mr. Ryder, they need both of us. They need your protection and your strength and this home you've given them. But they also need family. Need someone who remembers their mother, who can tell them stories and keep Grace's memory alive." Cole thought about it. Thought about Ruby calling him Pa, about Ezra's little arms around his neck, about the crushing fear that someone would take them away. "I can live with that, if it means they're safe." "Thank you." Iris smiled. "For what it's worth, I think Grace would have liked you. She always said a good man was one who protected those weaker than himself. You're that kind of man. I'm trying to be. You're succeeding." They talked late into the night, making plans, building strategy. Iris had worked as a lawyer's clerk for a year in Dallas, knew enough about law to help build their case. By midnight they had a plan. Iris would stay at the boarding house in town, would work with Doc Hayes and Sheriff Garrett to prepare for Judge Morgan's arrival, would gather every piece of evidence against Thornton they could find. Cole would keep the children safe at the ranch, would prepare Ruby for testimony, would fortify the property in case Thornton decided to attack before the judge arrived. When Iris finally prepared to leave for town, Ruby woke up and ran to her. "You're coming back, right? Every day, I promise." Iris hugged her tight. "You're not getting rid of me again." "Good, because Ezra needs to know his aunt, and I need you to tell me more stories about Mama." "I will, sweet girl. All the stories you want." Cole walked Iris to her wagon. The night was clear, cold, stars thick overhead. "Mr. Ryder, Cole, Cole." Iris looked at him. "I meant what I said. Grace would have loved you for what you're doing, and so do I. Not in a romantic way, but as family. You're giving these children something I can't. A home, safety, a father's love. They're giving me something too, a reason to keep living. Then we're both getting what we need." Iris climbed into her wagon. "I'll be back tomorrow morning with supplies, and to help Ruby practice her testimony. Be careful. Thornton has eyes everywhere. I've been careful my whole life. Time to be brave instead." She rode off into the darkness. Cole watched until her wagon lights disappeared. Then he went back inside. Ruby was still awake, sitting by the fire, staring into the flames. "You okay?" "Yeah, just thinking about Mama, about how she'd feel knowing Aunt Iris came, knowing we got you. What do you think she'd feel?" Ruby smiled. "I think she'd be relieved, and happy, and maybe a little bit at peace." Cole sat beside her. "I hope you're right." "Me too." Ruby leaned against him. "Pa, yeah? Thank you for not sending us away, for fighting for us, even though we're not really yours. You are really mine." Cole's voice was firm. "Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And choice is stronger than blood any day. Ruby looked up at him. You really believe that? With everything I got. She hugged him tight. I love you, Pa. Love you too, little one. They sat together until the fire burned down to embers. Then Ruby went to bed. Cole checked the locks, loaded his rifle, settled into his chair for another night of watching. But this time, he didn't feel alone, didn't feel like he was waiting to die. He felt like he was protecting something precious, something worth fighting for, something worth living for. Outside, the Texas night stretched vast and cold. Stars wheeled overhead. Wind whispered across the plains. And somewhere out there, Silas Thornton was planning his next move, gathering his forces, preparing to take what he wanted by any means necessary. The next morning, Cole made a decision. He couldn't just sit and wait for Thornton's next move, couldn't keep the children trapped on the ranch like prisoners, and he had 40 head of cattle that needed selling before winter. Ruby found him in the barn, saddling Thunder. Where are we going, Pa? Fort Worth? Cole tightened the cinch. Taking the herd to market, and taking you and Ezra somewhere safe while we do it. But Aunt Iris said the judge is coming in 3 days, which is why we're leaving now. Cole met her eyes. I don't trust Thornton to wait. Don't trust that warrant is the last trick he's got. We get you to Fort Worth, leave you with someone I trust, then come back for the hearing. Who in Fort Worth? Old friend of mine. Marshal Sarah McKenna, toughest woman I ever met. She'll keep you safe. Ruby's jaw set. I don't want to leave you. You won't. I'll be right there with you the whole way. 3 days on the trail. Then I leave you for 1 day, ride back, and we face that judge together. What about Aunt Iris? She stays here, works with Sheriff Garrett, gathers the evidence. Cole put his hand on Ruby's shoulder. This way, no matter what Thornton tries, you're out of his reach. Ruby thought about it, then nodded. Okay. But I want to learn something on this trip. What's that? How to shoot proper. Not just hold a gun, really shoot. Cole almost smiled. Deal. By noon, they were ready. Cole, Ruby, Ezra, and old Pete Wilson. A weathered wrangler who'd worked the Lone Star for 20 years. 40 head of cattle, 3 days to Fort Worth. Iris hugged the children tight before they left. You keep them safe, she told Cole, with my life. And you, she looked at Ruby, you take care of your brother. And your pa. Ruby nodded. Serious. Then they rode out. The first day was easy. Clear skies. Good grass. The cattle moved well. Ezra rode in front of Cole, pointing at everything, asking questions that never stopped. What's that bird, Pa? Hawk. Why's it flying in circles? Looking for food. What kind of food? Mice, rabbits, small things. Will it eat Ezra? Cole chuckled. No, little man. You're too big and too loud. Old Pete rode point. Ruby beside Cole. She was quiet most of the morning, just watching the land roll by. You okay, sweetheart? Just thinking about Mama. About how she never got to see places like this, never got to leave Miller's Creek. Maybe she's seeing it now, through your eyes. Ruby smiled at that. I hope so. That evening, they made camp by a creek. Pete handled the cattle. Cole built the fire. Ruby helped Ezra gather kindling. After supper, Cole pulled out his Colt. Ready for that shooting lesson? Ruby's eyes lit up. Really? Cole set up tin cans on a fallen log, showed Ruby how to stand, how to breathe, how to sight down the barrel. Don't pull the trigger. Squeeze it. Gentle. Like you're asking it to fire, not forcing it. Ruby took aim, fired, missed by 2 feet. She fired again, missed again, and again, and again. After 20 rounds, she hadn't hit a single can. Her hands were shaking, tears in her eyes. I can't do it. I'm useless. Cole knelt beside her. You know how many shots it took Danny to hit his first target? How many? 63. Cole reloaded the Colt. And you know what he said after he finally hit it? What? Took me long enough. Then he laughed and asked to try again. Ruby wiped her eyes. One more try? As many tries as you need. She aimed, breathed, squeezed. The can flew off the log. Ruby's mouth fell open. I did it. I actually did it. You did. Now do it again. She did, and again, and again. By the time darkness fell, she'd hit 6 cans in a row. That night she fell asleep smiling, curled up next to Ezra, happy. The second day brought clouds, cold wind from the north. The cattle got nervous, skittish. "Storm coming," Pete said. "Big one by the feel of it. How far to Fort Worth?" "Day and a half if we push, 2 if we take it easy." "We push." They drove the herd hard, through the afternoon, into evening, made it to Red Rock Canyon just as the first drops of rain started falling. The canyon was narrow, high rock walls on both sides, only way through to Fort Worth. Cole didn't like it. Too perfect for an ambush. But they didn't have a choice. "Pete, you take point. I'll bring up the rear. Ruby, you keep Ezra between us. Anything happens, you run. Understand?" Ruby's hand moved to the small revolver Cole had given her that morning. "I understand." They entered the canyon. They were halfway through when Cole heard it, the click of a hammer being pulled back. "Down!" he shouted. Gunfire exploded from the rocks above. 6 men, maybe more, hired guns. Pete went down first, shot through the shoulder. His horse reared through him. Cole grabbed Ezra, shoved him toward Ruby. "Get to cover, now!" Ruby ran, dragged Ezra behind a boulder. The boy was screaming, terrified. Cole returned fire, dropped one attacker, then another, but there were too many. A bullet tore through his hat. Another hit his saddle. Thunder screamed, but held steady. Then he heard it. Ruby's gun, the small Colt he'd given her. She was firing from behind the boulder, covering him. One of the attackers tried to circle around. "Get to the children." Ruby's bullet caught him in the leg. He went down, cursing. Cole used the distraction, charged forward on Thunder, got close enough to the rocks to make the high ground useless. The remaining attackers scattered, ran for their horses. Gone within seconds. Cole dismounted, ran to Pete. The old wrangler was alive. Bleeding bad, but alive. "How bad?" Cole asked. "Bad enough." Pete's face was gray. "But I'll live. Get those kids to safety." Ruby appeared, Ezra on her hip. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady. "You saved us," Cole said. "That shot you took. You saved us. Mama always said protect family, no matter what." Cole pulled her into a hug. "You're your mother's daughter, brave and true." They made a rough camp. Cole bandaged Pete as best he could, built a fire, stood guard all night. At dawn, they moved again, slower now. Pete could barely stay in the saddle. Fort Worth appeared at noon. Big, noisy, more people than Ruby and Ezra had ever seen. Cole led them straight to the marshal's office. Marshal Sarah McKenna was a tall woman with gray streaks in her dark hair, 50 years old and tough as boot leather. Cole Ryder. She smiled. "Heard you were dead. Close to it." Cole dismounted. "Need a favor, Sarah. Name it." "Keep these 2 safe for me, just for 2 days. Then I'll be back." McKenna looked at Ruby and Ezra, then at Cole. "What kind of trouble you in? The kind where powerful men want children dead." McKenna's face hardened. "They'll be safe, you have my word." Cole knelt in front of Ruby. "I have to go back. Have to face that judge. But I'll be back for you. I promise." Ruby pulled something from her pocket. Cole's old Texas Ranger badge, the one he'd quit wearing 4 years ago. "You forgot this." "I didn't forget. I left it behind." "Well, I'm giving it back." Ruby pressed it into his hand. "Because you're still a ranger, still protecting people. And rangers keep their promises." Cole's vision blurred. He hugged both children. "Tight. I'll be back. 2 days. That's a promise." Ezra clung to his neck. "Love you, Pa. Love you too, little man." He rode out before they could see him cry. Left old Pete with the town doctor, left the cattle at the stockyard, and headed back to Redemption Creek to face whatever came next. Cole rode through the night, pushed hard, made it back to Redemption Creek by dawn on December 21st. One day before the judge arrived, Iris met him at the ranch, face tight with worry. "The marshals came yesterday," she said, "looking for you. Said they have news." "What kind of news?" "The kind that changes everything." The next morning brought news that changed everything. Sheriff Garrett rode up at dawn. His face was grim. Behind him rode Doc Hayes and 3 men Cole didn't recognize. They wore badges, federal badges. Cole stepped onto the porch. Rifle ready. "Morning, Sheriff." "Morning, Cole." Garrett dismounted. "These men are Deputy U.S. Marshals. Came in on the morning train from Fort Worth." The lead marshal was a tall man with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too much. He stepped forward. "Mr. Ryder, I'm Marshal James Blackwell. Judge Morgan sent us ahead. She's concerned about the situation here, about threats to witnesses and potential violence." "Smart woman." "She is." Blackwell looked at the house. "The children inside?" "They are, and they're staying inside until I know who you really are and what you want." "Fair enough." Blackwell pulled out papers. "This is our commission from the federal court, and this is a letter from Judge Morgan explaining our presence." Cole took the papers. "Read them carefully. They looked legitimate. Official seals, proper signatures. Judge Morgan takes children's safety seriously," Blackwell continued. "When she heard about the warrant from Judge Caldwell and the threats from Silas Thornton, she decided to move fast. We're here to ensure the hearing happens without interference." "How many men did you bring?" 6, including me. More coming if needed." Blackwell's voice was hard. "And I've got a federal warrant for Silas Thornton's arrest. Obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, conspiracy to commit murder." Cole's heart jumped. "You're arresting him?" "Today." Garrett smiled. "That's why we came early. To give you the good news before we ride out to Thornton's place. He'll fight. Let him." Blackwell adjusted his gun belt. "I've taken down worse men than some 2-bit land grabber who thinks he owns a county." "What about his men?" Cole asked. "He's got hired guns, probably a dozen or more." "Then it'll be interesting." Blackwell turned to his deputies. "You boys ready?" They nodded. Hard men, professional, the kind who didn't scare easy. "We'll be back by noon," Garrett said to Cole. "With Thornton in custody, then you and those children can breathe easy. Don't count your chickens." Cole's voice was cautious. "Thornton's slippery. He'll have lawyers. He'll have friends in high places, not higher than a federal judge." Blackwell mounted his horse. "And not higher than the law." They rode off. Cole watched them go, felt something in his chest loosen slightly. Hope, maybe, or just relief that help had finally arrived. Ruby came out onto the porch. She'd been listening from inside. "They're really arresting him?" "That's what they said." "Do you believe them?" Cole looked at her. This girl who'd learned not to trust easy, who'd seen too many promises broken. "I believe they'll try. Whether they succeed is another matter." "What if they don't?" "Then we keep fighting. Same as always." Ruby nodded, slipped her hand into his. "Together, together." They went inside. Iris arrived an hour later with fresh bread and eggs and news from town. "The whole place is buzzing," she said. "Word got out about the marshals, about the warrant for Thornton. Half the town is celebrating. The other half is scared of what comes next." "What about you?" Cole asked. "You scared?" "Terrified, but also hopeful. For the first time since Grace died, I feel like maybe justice is possible, like maybe the monsters don't always win." "They don't. Not this time." The waiting was hard. Cole paced, checked his rifle, watched the road. Ruby taught Ezra his letters, but her mind was elsewhere. Iris tried to sew, but kept pricking her fingers. Noon came and went. No riders. 1 o'clock. Nothing. 2 o'clock. Still nothing. By 3, Cole was getting worried. By 4, he was getting ready to ride out himself. Then he heard it. Horses, many horses, coming fast. Everyone in white. Cole grabbed his rifle. "Now!" Iris scooped up Ezra. Ruby ran to the back room. Cole positioned himself by the window. The riders appeared through the dust. Sheriff Garrett in front, face grim but satisfied. The marshals flanked him, weapons still drawn. And in the middle, barely recognizable, Silas Thornton. The man who'd owned half the county looked broken. His expensive black coat was torn at the shoulder. Blood dried on his split lip. Hands bound so tight the rope cut into his wrists, leaving red marks. His hat was gone, hair wild, face purple with rage and humiliation. But it was his eyes that struck Cole. They'd lost that predator gleam, that certainty of power. Now they just looked desperate, cornered. Cole let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "All clear," he called. They got him. Ruby rushed to the window, stared at the man who'd killed her mother, the man who'd haunted her nightmares for weeks. "He looks smaller," she said quietly. "I thought he'd be bigger. Evil always looks smaller in chains." They brought Thornton into the yard. Blackwell dismounted. His face was grim but satisfied, had more than a bit of trouble. Blackwell dismounted slowly, like a man who'd just been through hell. "Two of Thornton's men tried to stop us. Made their choice when they drew on federal marshals. Both dead?" Cole asked. "One dead. One wishes he was." Blackwell's voice was cold. The rest scattered when they saw how serious we were about this. "And Thornton tried to run, made it about 100 yards before his horse threw him into a creek." Blackwell allowed himself a thin smile, pulled him out soaking wet and crying like a baby, offered me $20,000 to let him go. "What'd you say?" "Told him he couldn't afford me. Then I put the cuffs on extra tight. One of my deputies took a bullet in the arm. He'll live." Blackwell looked at Thornton. "This one tried to run, made it about 50 yards before his horse threw him." Thornton glared at Cole with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Ryder, you hear me? I've got lawyers, I've got friends. I'll be out by tomorrow, and when I am, you and those devil-spawned children are finished." "Shut up." Blackwell jerked Thornton's bindings. "You're going to a federal holding cell, and the only friend you'll have is the rope that hangs you. You can't prove anything." Thornton's voice was desperate now. "It's the word of a traumatized child against a respected businessman. We've got the deed proving you forged documents. We've got Grace Carson's journal describing your threats. We've got 5 witnesses who'll testify you led the mob that killed her." Blackwell smiled coldly. "And we've got you threatening children in front of 6 federal officers. So, yeah, we can prove plenty." Ruby appeared in the doorway. Ezra peeked out from behind her. Thornton saw them. His face went white, then red, then purple again. "You little witch. You ruined everything. Your mother ruined everything. That land was mine. The water was mine. You had no right. We had every right." Ruby's voice was steady. "It was our land, our home. And you took it because you're a greedy, evil man who can't stand when people won't bow to you." Thornton lunged at her, or tried to. Garrett and Blackwell held him back. I'll kill you both. I'll finish what I started." Cole stepped in front of Ruby, placed himself between her and Thornton. "You won't touch them. Not today. Not ever." Thornton snarled, "You're nobody, Ryder. A washed-up drunk who couldn't even save his own family. What makes you think you can save them?" Cole's hand moved to his gun, every instinct screaming to draw, to end this, to put a bullet in the man who'd caused so much pain. But he looked down at Ruby, at her wide eyes, at the fear and hope mixed together, and he chose differently. "Because I'm their father now, and fathers protect their children, even from men like you." He turned his back on Thornton, faced Ruby. "Go inside, sweetheart. You don't need to see this." Ruby nodded, took Ezra's hand. They went inside together. Blackwell and Garrett dragged Thornton to a horse, threw him across the saddle, bound him tight. "We'll hold him in Redemption Creek tonight," Garrett said. "Tomorrow we transport him to Fort Worth for trial. Make sure he doesn't escape." "He won't." Blackwell mounted his horse. "And Mr. Ryder? Thank you for protecting those children, for standing up when everyone else was too scared. Just did what needed doing. That's what heroes always say." They rode off with Thornton cursing and struggling all the way. Cole watched until they disappeared over the horizon. Then he went inside. Ruby and Ezra were at the table with Iris. The boy was drawing pictures with charcoal. Ruby was staring at her hands. "You okay?" Cole asked. "I don't know." Ruby's voice was small. "I thought I'd feel happy, seeing him caught, seeing him in chains. But I just feel empty." Cole sat beside her. "That's normal. Revenge doesn't fill the hole, doesn't bring back what was taken." "Then what does?" Cole looked at Ezra, at Iris, at this makeshift family they'd built from tragedy and choice. This family, love, building something new instead of dwelling on what was lost. Ruby leaned against him. "Is it over? Really over?" "The fighting part is. The healing part is just beginning." "How long does healing take?" Cole thought about Elena, about Danny and Sarah, about 4 years of grief that still ached. Long time, maybe forever. But it gets easier, especially when you're not alone. Ruby smiled. First real smile he'd seen in days. "We're not alone, are we?" "No, little one. We're not alone." That evening they had a quiet celebration. Iris cooked rabbit stew. Ruby made biscuits that were only slightly burned. Ezra laughed at everything. When the children went to bed, the adults sat by the fire. "What happens now?" Iris asked. "Judge Morgan arrives in 2 days. We have the hearing. We make it official. And then? And then we live." Cole stared into the flames. "We build a life. We heal. We become a real family. We already are a real family." Iris smiled. "We just need the paperwork to prove it." Cole thought about that, about how much had changed in a week, how he'd gone from ready to die to ready to live, from empty to full, from alone to surrounded, all because he'd heard a child scream in a blizzard, all because he'd chosen to ride toward danger instead of away from it. "Elena would be proud," Iris said softly. "I never met her, but I know what kind of woman raises a man like you. She'd be proud of what you've become, what you're doing for Grace's children." Cole's throat tightened. "I hope so. She would. Trust me." They sat in comfortable silence. Outside the wind picked up, carried the smell of snow. Winter was settling in for real now, hard months ahead. But inside the Lone Star Ranch, the fire burned warm. The children slept safe. And 3 adults who'd been strangers a week ago sat together like family, because that's what they were now. Family. Not by blood, but by choice, by sacrifice, by love. And that, Cole knew, was the strongest kind of family there was, the kind that chose each other, the kind that fought for each other, the kind that would never give up no matter how hard things got. He'd lost one family to fever and fate, but he'd found another in a frozen barn and a desperate fight for justice. And this family, he swore, he'd protect until his last breath. That was a promise, the last promise he'd ever make. And unlike the promises he couldn't keep to Elena and Danny and Sarah, this one he'd keep, no matter what. December 22nd couldn't come fast enough, but when it did, Cole Ryder would be ready. Ready to stand before a judge and say, "These are my children." Ready to build a future from the ashes of the past. Ready to live again. December 22nd, 1887, the day everything would be decided. Cole woke before dawn. Hadn't really slept. Just laid there, listening to Ruby and Ezra breathe, listening to the house creak, listening to his own heartbeat counting down the hours. Today Judge Elizabeth Morgan would arrive. Today they'd stand before the law and fight for the right to be a family. Today everything he'd fought for would either be confirmed or torn away. Cole dressed in his best shirt, the one Elena had made him wear to church. Hadn't worn it in 4 years. It still smelled faintly of lavender, still carried memories of better days. He checked his face in the small mirror, gray in his beard now, lines around his eyes. But something else, too. Something that hadn't been there a week ago. Purpose, maybe. Or just the look of a man who'd found a reason to keep going. "Pa?" Ruby stood in the doorway, already dressed, hair brushed, looking older than 12, looking ready. "Morning, sweetheart. I couldn't sleep." "Me neither." She came and sat beside him. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Me too." Ruby's hands twisted in her lap. What if the judge doesn't believe us? What if she thinks I'm lying about Thornton? What if she decides we should go to an orphanage? Then we'll figure something out. Cole took her hands, steadied them. But that's not going to happen. You're going to tell the truth. Iris has the evidence. Doc Hayes will vouch for us. We've got witnesses. We've got the law on our side now. Thornton had the law on his side too. In Miller's Creek, this is different. Judge Morgan is different. She's not in anyone's pocket. She answers to truth, not money. Ruby wanted to believe. Cole could see it in her eyes. That desperate hope fighting against learned cynicism. What if she takes us away from you? She won't. But what if she does? Cole pulled Ruby close. Then I'll fight for you. I'll appeal. I'll ride to every court in Texas if I have to. I'll never stop fighting. You understand? Never. Ruby buried her face in his chest. Promise? I promise. On Elena's grave. On Danny and Sarah's memory. I promise I'll never stop fighting for you and Ezra. Okay. Ruby's voice was muffled. Okay, I believe you. They sat together until the sun rose, painting the Texas sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day. A day of judgment. A day that would change everything. Iris arrived at 8 with a wagon from town. She'd brought clothes for the children, store-bought, new. A dress for Ruby in deep blue. A little suit for Ezra. Grace would have wanted them to look proper, Iris said. Would have wanted them to walk into that courtroom with their heads high. Ruby touched the dress like it was made of spun glass. It's beautiful. So are you, sweet girl. So are you. They dressed carefully. Ruby's hair braided and tied with ribbon. Ezra in his suit looking like a miniature gentleman. Cole in his church clothes feeling like an imposter. You clean up nice, Iris said with a smile. Don't feel like myself. That's because you're becoming someone new, someone better. The ride to town took an hour. Ezra dozed against Iris. Ruby stared out at the passing landscape. Cole drove in silence, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The blizzard, the barn. The choice to save instead of walking away. One choice, one moment, and everything changed. Redemption. Creek was packed. Seemed like half the county had showed up, some out of curiosity, some out of support, some just wanting to see Silas Thornton finally face justice. The courthouse was a 2-story building, brick, solid, the biggest structure in town. Inside, the courtroom was already filling up. Doc Hayes was there, Miss Abigail, the Morrison brothers, Pastor Williams, Sheriff Garrett. And sitting in chains at the defendant's table, Silas Thornton. Thornton looked diminished, smaller somehow. His expensive suit was rumpled, his face unshaven, but his eyes still burned with rage and hate. When he saw Ruby, he smiled, cold and cruel. Ruby's hand found Cole's, squeezed tight. Don't look at him, Cole murmured. He can't hurt you anymore. But Ruby kept looking, kept staring, like she was memorizing every detail, every line, every feature, filing it away for the nightmares that would come. All rise. Everyone stood. A door opened at the back of the courtroom, and Judge Elizabeth Morgan entered. She was not what Cole expected, 50 maybe. Steel gray hair pulled back, severe, a face that looked like it had been carved from granite, eyes that missed nothing. She wore black robes and carried herself like a general walking onto a battlefield. Be seated. Everyone sat. The room went quiet. So quiet you could hear the clock ticking. Hear people breathing. Hear Cole's heart pounding. This court is now in session. Morgan's voice filled the room. We're here to address 3 matters. First, the custody petition of Cole Ryder regarding Ruby Mae Carson and Ezra Daniel Carson. Second, the criminal charges against Silas Thornton. Third, the disposition of the Carson property and estate. She looked around the room. Her gaze lingered on Ruby, on Ezra, on Cole. I've reviewed the documents filed in this case. I've read the statements. I've examined the evidence. But before I make any rulings, I want to hear directly from the parties involved. She pointed at Ruby. Miss Carson, please approach the bench. Ruby stood. Her legs shook, but she walked forward, head high, just like her mama would have wanted. Morgan's face softened slightly. How old are you, child? 12, ma'am. I just turned 12 last month. And you witnessed your mother's death? Yes, ma'am. Ruby's voice didn't waver. I saw everything. Tell me what happened, in your own words. Take your time. Ruby took a breath. Then she told it, all of it. The accusations, the mob, Thornton leading them, her mother's pleas, the rope, the tree. The way Grace Carson had looked at her daughter one last time and mouthed the words, I love you, before they kicked the chair. The courtroom was silent. People wiped their eyes. Even Marshal Blackwell looked away. Ruby didn't cry, just told it flat and clear and true. Like she was describing something that had happened to someone else. Like the only way to survive the memory was to empty it of emotion. When she finished, Judge Morgan leaned forward. Why did they kill her? What was their reason? Said she was a witch. Said she cursed Mr. Thornton's cattle, but Mama never cursed nothing. She was a healer, used herbs and roots to help sick folks. When the cattle died, they needed someone to blame, so they blamed her. And Mr. Thornton was involved. He led them. Ruby's eyes found Thornton. It was his idea, his rope, his tree. He wanted our land because it has a spring, water for cattle. Mama wouldn't sell. So he killed her and tried to kill us too. Lies. Thornton stood up. All lies from a troubled child who doesn't understand what she saw. Sit down, Mr. Thornton. Morgan's voice was ice. You'll get your turn. She looked back at Ruby. What happened after your mother died? We ran. Took Ezra and hid. Moved every night. Stayed in barns and cellars. Then the blizzard came and Ezra got sick, and I thought we were going to die. Ruby's voice finally cracked. I thought I was going to lose him too, and I couldn't. I couldn't lose him. He's all I got left of Mama. But you didn't lose him. No, ma'am. Because Mr. Ryder found us, saved us, brought us home. Do you want to stay with Mr. Ryder? Yes, ma'am. More than anything. Why? Because he's a good man. Because he treats us like we matter. Because when I call him Pa, he doesn't flinch. He just holds me tighter. Judge Morgan's eyes glistened. You may sit down, Miss Carson. Thank you for your courage. Ruby walked back to Cole, collapsed into the chair beside him. He put his arm around her, felt her shaking. You did good, he whispered. Real good. Next, Morgan called Iris. Then Doc Hayes. Then Sheriff Garrett. Then 5 townspeople who all testified to Grace Carson's character, to her kindness, to the fact that she'd never hurt anyone. Then the judge called Cole. He stood on legs that felt like water, walked to the front, stood before the bench feeling every eye in the room on him. Mr. Ryder, tell me why you want to be guardian to these children. Cole looked at Ruby and Ezra, at this family he'd found in a frozen barn. Because they saved my life. Explain. 4 years ago I lost my wife and children to fever. I spent the next 4 years waiting to die. Drinking myself to sleep, going through motions. I'd given up on everything, on God, on people, on myself. He swallowed hard. The night I found Ruby and Ezra, I was at the graveyard with a loaded gun, ready to end it, ready to quit. Then I heard a child scream, and something in me, something I thought was dead, it woke up, that need to protect, to help, to matter. Cole's voice strengthened. I rode into that blizzard not knowing what I'd find, found 2 kids about to freeze to death, found a girl who was braver than any soldier I ever met, found a little boy who'd forgotten how to cry. And I knew, right then, that this was why I was still alive. This was my second chance. Morgan listened without expression. What makes you think you're fit to raise them? I don't know if I am. Cole met her eyes. I'm broken. I drink too much. I've got ghosts that haunt me. But I love those kids. And I'll fight for them. And I'll protect them with my last breath. That's all I got to offer. But it's everything I got. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morgan made notes. Her face gave nothing away. You may sit down. Cole returned to his seat. felt Ruby's hand slip into his. Next, Morgan called Silas Thornton. Thornton stood, adjusted his suit, put on his reasonable businessman face. "Your Honor, I'm a victim here, a victim of lies and conspiracy. Grace Carson was a dangerous woman who practiced dark arts. When her evil threatened my livelihood and my community, we had no choice but to act." "You had a choice," Morgan said coldly. "It's called the law. You could have filed a complaint, sought a court order. Instead, you formed a mob and murdered a woman in front of her child. She practiced witchcraft." Morgan slammed her gavel. "There's no such thing as witchcraft, Mr. Thornton. There's only superstition and greed. And from what I've seen, you've got plenty of both." She held up the deed and the journal. "This evidence proves you tried to steal the Carson land through fraud and intimidation. When that failed, you murdered Grace Carson. Then you tried to murder her children. And when that failed, you tried to use corrupt warrants to finish the job. That's not how it happened." "Really? Then explain why 6 federal marshals arrested you. Explain the forged deed. Explain Grace Carson's journal documenting months of threats. Explain why you grabbed an 11-year-old girl by the throat." Thornton's face went red. "She's lying. They're all lying. 16 witnesses can't all be lying, Mr. Thornton, but one greedy land grabber certainly can." She stood. "I've heard enough. I'm ready to issue my rulings." The courtroom held its breath. Cole felt Ruby's hand tighten in his, felt his own heart stop. "In the matter of criminal charges against Silas Thornton, I find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree, guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty of fraud, guilty of witness intimidation, guilty of obstruction of justice." Gasps rippled through the room. Thornton's face went white. "You can't. I have lawyers. I have friends. Your friends can't help you now." Morgan's voice was final. "You're sentenced to hang by the neck until dead. Sentenced to be carried out within 30 days. No, this isn't over." Thornton lunged toward the bench. Marshal Blackwell and Sheriff Garrett grabbed him, held him back. "You can't do this. You can't. Take him to the federal holding cell." Morgan didn't even look at him. "And get him out of my courtroom." They dragged Thornton out. His screams echoed down the hallway, then faded, then stopped. Judge Morgan turned to Cole and the children. "In the matter of custody, I've reviewed the petition, I've heard the testimony, and I've watched how these children look at you, Mr. Ryder. How they trust you, how they call you Pa." She paused. Cole couldn't breathe. "I've also considered Miss Carson's testimony that she supports this arrangement, that she believes these children need both of you, a father and an aunt, a home and family connection." Morgan picked up her gavel. "Therefore, I grant full legal guardianship of Ruby Mae Carson and Ezra Daniel Carson to Cole Ryder, with the provision that Iris Carson maintains visitation rights and family involvement as agreed upon by both parties." Cole's vision blurred. Ruby sobbed. Ezra, not understanding but sensing joy, clapped his little hands. "Furthermore," Morgan continued, "the Carson property and all associated land rights are hereby returned to Ruby Mae Carson and Ezra Daniel Carson, to be held in trust by their legal guardian Cole Ryder until they reach majority." She looked at them, her granite face softening. "You're a family now, by law and by love. Congratulations." She banged the gavel. Court adjourned. The courtroom erupted, people cheering, crying, hugging. Doc Hayes clapped Cole on the back. Miss Abigail kissed Ruby's forehead. Pastor Williams prayed a blessing. Cole just stood there, numb, overwhelmed, trying to process that it was real, that they'd won, that these children were his now, legally, forever. "Pa," Ruby's voice broke through the fog. "Pa, we can stay? You can stay. Forever." She threw her arms around him, held on like she'd never let go. Ezra crawled up and wrapped his little arms around both of them. "We're a family now." "For real," Ruby's voice was muffled against Cole's chest. "We were always a family. Now we just got the paper to prove it." Iris joined the hug, then Doc Hayes, then Miss Abigail, then half the courtroom. A mass of bodies all celebrating this victory, this triumph of good over evil, of family over hate. When the initial celebration calmed, Iris pulled Cole aside to a quiet corner of the courtroom. "I need to show you something." She pulled an envelope from her coat. "I found this among Grace's belongings, her last letter to me, written 3 months before she died." Cole took the envelope with shaking hands. "Should I read it now? I think you need to." Iris's eyes glistened. "It's about you, even though she never met you." Cole unfolded the letter. Grace Carson's handwriting was neat and careful. "Dear Iris, I don't have much time. Thornton's threats are getting worse. I fear what might happen, but I'm not writing to ask for help. I know you have your own life, your own struggles. I'm writing to ask a favor. If something happens to me, if I don't survive this, please find my children. Please make sure they're safe. Please make sure they know they were loved. I've been praying, asking God to send someone strong enough to protect them, someone broken enough to need them, someone who understands that family isn't just blood, it's choice, it's love, it's showing up even when it's hard. I don't know who that person will be, but I believe they exist. I believe God has someone waiting, someone who will love Ruby and Ezra the way they deserve to be loved. Please help them find that person, Iris. Please don't let my babies grow up alone." With love always, Grace Cole's hands shook. She knew. Somehow she knew someone would come. "Mothers know," Iris said softly. "Grace prayed for you before you ever existed in her children's lives. Prayed for a man strong enough to protect them and broken enough to need them. I'm not sure I'm the answer to anyone's prayer. You are to Ruby and Ezra." Iris touched his arm. "And that's all that matters." They rejoined the celebration. Doc Hayes clapped Cole on the back. When the crowd finally dispersed, Cole and his family stood alone in the courtroom. Judge Morgan approached. "Mr. Ryder, a word." Cole straightened. "Yes, ma'am. I'm not an emotional woman. I've presided over hundreds of cases, heard thousands of stories. But what you did, riding into that blizzard, fighting for these children, standing up to a man who could have destroyed you." Morgan's voice caught. "That's the kind of courage I wish I saw more of. I just did what needed doing." "No, you did what very few would have done. You chose love over fear, family over loneliness, life over death. And because of that choice, 2 children have a future." She extended her hand. "Thank you for restoring my faith in humanity." Cole shook her hand. "Thank you for restoring my faith in justice. Take care of them, till my last breath." Morgan nodded, then turned and walked away, leaving Cole alone with his family, his real, legal, forever family. They went to Doc Hayes' house for dinner. Half the town showed up, bringing food, bringing gifts, bringing congratulations. Ezra got a wooden horse from the blacksmith. Ruby got a book from Miss Abigail. Cole got a bottle of whiskey from the Morrison brothers. They stood together watching Ruby teach Ezra to dance. The boy was laughing, the sound pure and sweet and full of life. "What will you do now?" Cole asked Iris. "Go back to Dallas?" "Eventually, but not yet. I want to stay close for a while, want to help Ruby remember Grace, want to be the aunt Grace would have wanted me to be. You're welcome any time. This is your family too." Iris hugged him. "Thank you, Cole, for everything." The party went late into the night, but eventually people drifted away, back to their homes, their lives, their own families. Cole and his family made the long ride back to the Lone Star Ranch. Stars wheeled overhead. The air was cold and clear. Ezra slept in Iris's arms. Ruby leaned against Cole's shoulder. "Pa, yeah? What happens now?" "Now we live. We build a life. We heal. What if I can't forget? What if I always see Mama hanging from that tree? Then I'll be there when the nightmares come. I'll hold you when you cry. And I'll remind you that you survived, that you're stronger than the darkness." Ruby was quiet for a long time. Then, "Do you still see your family Elena and Danny and Sarah? Every day. Does it get easier? Yes and no. You don't stop missing them, but you learn to carry the missing. You learn to love what's in front of you without forgetting what's behind you. I think Mama would like you. Cole's throat tightened. I wish I could have met her. Me too. You would have been friends. They arrived home near midnight. Iris took Ezra to the spare room. Ruby headed to her pallet, but stopped at the door. Pa, will you stay until I fall asleep, like you used to with Danny? Cole's heart broke and healed all at once. Of course. He sat beside her pallet, held her hand, hummed the lullaby Iris had taught him, watched her eyes grow heavy, watched her drift toward sleep. Pa? Her voice was drowsy. Yes, sweetheart? I love you. Love you too, Ruby, forever and always. She smiled, then slept. Cole sat there for a long time, watching her breathe, watching her chest rise and fall, healthy, safe, alive. He thought about Grace Carson's letter, about prayers sent up from a dying woman, about providence or chance or whatever force had put him in that graveyard on that night, had made him hear that scream through the blizzard. One choice, one moment, and everything changed. He'd gone to that graveyard ready to die, had put his finger on the trigger, had been seconds away from ending it all, but he'd heard a child scream, and he'd chosen to live, chosen to ride into danger, chosen to save instead of quit. And that choice had saved him every bit as much as it saved Ruby and Ezra. Cole stood quietly, checked the locks, made sure the fire was banked, then stepped out onto the porch. The night was clear, cold, beautiful. He looked up at the stars, thought about Elena, about Danny and Sarah. I hope you're proud, he whispered. I hope you understand why I had to keep going, why I had to love again. The wind picked up, gentle, almost like a caress, almost like an answer. Cole closed his eyes, and for the first time in 4 years, he felt peace, real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're meant to do. He had a family. He had a purpose. He had a future. And tomorrow, he'd wake up and be a father, would teach Ezra to ride, would help Ruby with her reading, would build the life they all deserved. But tonight, he stood under the Texas stars and felt grateful, grateful for second chances, grateful for frozen barns and desperate screams and choices made in blizzards, grateful to be alive. The door opened behind him. Iris stepped out, wrapped in a shawl. Couldn't sleep? Too much excitement, too much joy. Cole smiled. Not used to feeling this happy. Me neither. Iris stood beside him. For years I carried guilt, about leaving Grace, about not being there, about failing my sister. You didn't fail. You came when she needed you most, fought for her children, gave them family. Still, I wish I'd been braver sooner. We all wish that, but we can only live from here forward. They stood in comfortable silence. Two people who'd been strangers 2 weeks ago, now bound together by shared love for 2 children. Iris? Cole's voice was quiet. Yeah? Thank you. For trusting me with them. For not taking them away. Thank you for loving them, for giving them a home, for being the man Grace prayed for. Cole thought about that, about being an answer to prayer, about broken people finding each other in broken places and somehow making something whole. What will you tell them? Iris asked. About their mother? When they're older? The truth. That she was brave, that she loved them more than life, that she died protecting them, and that her last wish was for them to be safe and loved. Will you tell them about Grace's letter? About her prayers? Someday, when they're ready to understand that some love is strong enough to reach across death, strong enough to move the hand of God or fate or whatever force guides this world? That's beautiful. That's family. Iris smiled. Yes, that's exactly what it is. She went back inside. Cole stayed a moment longer, looking at his ranch, his home, his kingdom. It wasn't much. Weathered buildings, patched fences, cattle that were more trouble than profit. But it was his, and now it was theirs. a place where broken things could heal, where lost souls could be found, where family meant choice instead of blood. Cole went inside, checked on Ezra. The boy slept curled up like a kitten, peaceful, safe. Then he checked on Ruby. She'd kicked off her blanket. He tucked it back around her, brushed hair from her forehead. "You're safe now," he whispered. "Both of you. I promise." He settled into his chair, rifle across his lap. Old habit. Probably didn't need it anymore. Thornton was in jail. The threat was over, but some habits die hard. Cole closed his eyes. Let exhaustion take him. For the first time in 4 years, his sleep was dreamless. No nightmares about fever, no visions of graves, no Elena calling to him from the dark. Just peace, deep and restful and real. He woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, to the smell of coffee brewing, to the sound of children laughing. Ruby was teaching Ezra a game, some complicated thing involving rocks and string. The boy was concentrating hard, his little tongue poking out between his teeth. Iris was cooking breakfast, eggs and bacon and fresh bread. "Morning, sleepyhead," she smiled at Cole. "Thought you were going to sleep all day. What time is it?" "Almost 9. You were exhausted. We let you rest." Cole stood, stretched, felt muscles protest, but good protest, the kind that came from hard work and honest living. He walked to the window, looked out at his land, his home, his future, and he smiled. 6 months later, June 1888. Summer had come to the Texas Panhandle. The Lone Star Ranch thrived. Cole had expanded the herd, fixed the fences, built an addition to the house, so Ruby and Ezra each had their own room. Iris had moved into the old Henderson place a mile down the road, close enough to visit daily, far enough to give Cole and the children their own space. Ruby had grown 2 inches, had learned to read fluently, had started keeping a journal where she wrote about her mama, about her memories, about healing. Ezra was 4 now, talked nonstop, followed Cole everywhere, called him Pa without hesitation. On a warm Sunday afternoon, the whole family visited the graveyard. Cole knelt at Elena's grave, at Danny and Sarah's graves. He did this once a month now, brought flowers, told them stories about Ruby and Ezra. "I hope you're proud," he said quietly. "Hope you understand. I'll never forget you, never stop loving you. But I had to keep living, had to keep going." He placed flowers on each grave. "Ruby and Ezra are good kids. You'd love them. Danny would have taught Ezra to ride. Sarah would have followed Ruby everywhere. You all would have been friends." Ruby came and stood beside him, put her hand on his shoulder. "Are you okay, Pa?" "Yeah, sweetheart. Just talking to them. What do you tell them? That I love them, that I miss them, and that they'd be happy knowing you're part of our family now." Ruby knelt, touched Elena's headstone. "Thank you," she said softly, "for raising a man who could love us, who could be our PA when we needed one most." Cole's vision blurred. He put his arm around Ruby, held her close. Ezra ran up, handed Cole a handful of wildflowers. "For the graves, Pa, so they know we remember them." Cole took the flowers, placed them carefully. "Thank you, little man. That's real thoughtful. They're our family too, right? Even though we never met them, that's right. Family doesn't end with death. It just grows bigger." Iris joined them. The 4 of them stood together. A family built from loss and love and choice. As they walked back to the wagon, Ruby took Cole's hand. "Pa, yeah? Do you think Mama can see us? From heaven?" "I think so. Do you think she's happy?" Cole looked at Ruby, this brave, beautiful girl who'd survived hell and come out stronger, who called him Pa and meant it, who'd given him a reason to live again. "I think she's the happiest soul in heaven, because her babies are safe and loved and home." Ruby smiled, squeezed his hand. "I think so too." They drove back to the ranch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The land stretched out before them, vast and beautiful, and theirs. Cole looked at his family, at Ruby and Ezra, at Iris, at this unlikely collection of souls who'd found each other in tragedy. And he knew, deep in his bones, that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do, being exactly who he was meant to be, a father, a protector, a man who'd been given a second chance and hadn't wasted it, the last promise he'd made, to protect these children, to love them, to never give up. He'd kept it, would keep it, until his last breath. That night, after the children went to bed, Cole sat on his porch, looking at the stars, thinking about everything that had led him here, the fever that took his first family, the years of grief, the night in the graveyard with a loaded gun, the scream in the blizzard, the frozen barn, the choice to save instead of quit, all of it, every moment, every choice, leading him here, to this porch, this family, this life. Cole closed his eyes, whispered a prayer to a God he still wasn't sure he believed in. Thank you for the blizzard, for the scream, for giving me a reason to keep going, for these children, for this second chance. The wind picked up, warm now, carrying the smell of summer grass and possibility. And Cole Ryder smiled because he was home, really home, for the first time in 4 years, and tomorrow he'd wake up and he'd be a father, and he'd teach his children about love and courage and never giving up, and he'd live, really live, not just survive but thrive, because that's what second chances were for, that's what love demanded, that's what family meant. And Cole Ryder, broken cowboy, failed father, saved by 2 frozen children in a barn. He was ready for all of it, for the rest of his life. The last promise had become his first truth. Family is choice, love is action, and home is wherever your people are. The stars wheeled overhead, the night stretched out peaceful and perfect, and somewhere in the house, 2 children slept safe, loved, protected. Cole's children, his family, his reason for living, forever and always. The end.